is it weird? I feel like drug paraphernalia in many ways was both harder and easier to get during this time period.
Yeah.
Because they had a lot of open cocaine merch.
Yeah.
They had the cocaine spoons. You had the Coke spoon you could wear. Like in the movie, I remember during Wolf, we all had those things, what they call bullets. There was like a little like portable cocaine administrator that you could bring with you that you basically like flipped it over, took off the top, hit the bump, and then you put it back in, and it keeps your little cocaine in it all the time.
Or they had a little button on the bottom that would push it up, and you just lift it that way.
Yeah, and by the time we got of age, we had to deal with using our keys in a shitty bathroom in Brooklyn.
Listening to the fucking Stripes. What is it called? The Strokes, the Monks, the Rippers.
All of them.
But after taking a hit from Eddie's freebase pipe, you might be invited to partake in one of Eddie's favorite pastimes, Russian roulette.
That is also real, dude.
Mao.
Although partaking usually meant you just watched Eddie do it to himself while all of you were out of your fucking minds high.
In many ways. Well, yeah, I'm glad it's not. You should be glad it's not you, but that's kind of almost worse. You can do a bunch of drugs and you just watch the guy who owns the house, and he's just being like, la, 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 la. He's like skipping around the house, and then click, and then he does the, you should see your fucking faces, man. You guys are all fucking freaked out.
That's what's so incredible about the Eddie Nash part in Boogie Nights album, like, because they distill everything that is Eddie Nash into like 6 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, should I do it? Should I do it? Should I do it? Ah! And then everyone's, no. And then he just moves on to the next thing.
He's fucking like, guys. Because he's like laughing at them. You guys are all fucking scared and shit. That's hilarious.
He's a showman. You come to Eddie's house, you get a show.
He's a comedian.
There's fireworks, there's gunplay, there's whips.
Eddie, however, would involve new guests in a game that they didn't even know they were playing. When a new girl, guy, or whoever was brought to Eddie's place, he'd sometimes make them go to a room and sit on a couch. Before them, strewn across a coffee table, were literal piles of cocaine and jewelry in addition to large wads of cash. In front of them was a large mirror. That mirror was, of course, two-way.
Here you go. I'm going to leave you with my kids. I'm going to go powder my nose.
Once the new guest was sat down, Eddie would watch from the other side of the glass for hours, waiting to see what they took, if anything. And that was his way of assessing the guest. You know, but thankfully, like, there was no penalty if you took anything. You were just asked to leave.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy. That's fucking rude.
I mean, before he shuts the door, just be like, you mind if I get some Coke? Like, just ask.
I passed the test.
Now, as far as how Eddie and John Holmes hooked up, they met at one of Nash's nightclubs, the Seven Seas, which is now a souvenir shop called the Hollywoodland Experience, located across the street from Mann's Chinese Theater.
I bought an Oscar, Best Piggy.
Is that real?
No.
Did you?
But they have all the Oscars there.
Yeah.
Best Grandpa, stuff like that.
Yeah. This best piggy. Merch. There you go.
Thank you.
Well, as the story goes, John was at the Seven Seas to obtain information on a porno shoot in San Francisco from someone that one of our sources, the Devil and John Holmes, called the Lavender Hill Mob. Now, the only Lavender Hill Mob we could find was a gay activist group from the mid-'80s. Did a lot of good work. So I think the writer was just trying to distastefully and kind of cheekily suggest that John was there to meet a gay porn producer.
He very well. Yeah.
John Holmes did a lot of gay porn.
That's how they used to describe it. Like back in was it The Maltese Falcon? When Peter Lorre played that gay character. They couldn't call him gay, but they always said he smelled like lavender.
Yeah. That was code.
Yeah. But the Lavender Hill Mob was also a movie from the 40s. It was all kinds of lavender going around. But yeah, that is to say he was definitely there for a gay porn. But either way,
my mom used to say, happy and lighthearted.
But either way, the producer never showed up. But while John was waiting, he was recognized by Eddie Nash, who was, of course, a big fan of John's work.
You're the cock guy! That's the cock guy! Oh my God, it's the fucking cock guy! Oh my God! Let me ask. How are your balls? Come on, everyone asks about the cock. Not to step on any toes.
Now, naturally, Eddie liked showing off John at his clubs, and Eddie also supplied John with free cocaine in exchange for introductions to porn actresses.
Yeah.
Sometimes John would even pimp out his underage girlfriend Dawn to Eddie, telling him that Dawn was his niece from Oregon. She's in town. He would say,
Doesn't make it better.
No, God, no. But he would, because John had this weird thing where.
If only Eddie was like, actually, that makes some sense. Yeah, of course he would.
Yeah, niece from Oregon. Oh, yeah,
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, he would tell Eddie Nash that Dawn was like, yeah, she's in nursing school. She's visiting here from Oregon. Yeah, you can have her. But at the same time, John would also talk to Eddie Nash about his like, my precious Dawn, my precious Dawn. So there was a weird disconnect in John Holmes's brain when it came to Dawn and pimping her out, essentially. Not essentially.
Yes.
Explicitly
pimping
pimping her out. He pimped her out to a multitude, multiple people.
She's like one of the few people in his life that was actually good to him.
She was the only person. Well, I mean,
Good to him. She was his hostage. She was his hostage, and his first wife took care of him. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But John Holmes is not a nice guy.
Yeah,
No,
at this
it's
time
awful.
she's like 17.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, John Holmes would later refer to Eddie Nash as evil incarnate again and again. But he also said that he and Nash called each other, they were brothers. Always brothers.
That's what happens with when you do hours and hours of freebasing with each other. You get overly familiar.
Yes. It's again, the scene in Boogie Nights with Heather Graham and, what's her name? Redhead.
Julianne Moore.
And Julianne Moore in the room doing cocaine together for hours upon hours, and they're like, let's go for a walk. I don't want to leave this room. I don't either. Like, it's that shit, you know? But the thing is about John Holmes and Eddie Nash is it seemed like John Holmes was Eddie Nash's friend just so long as Nash's psychotic behavior didn't splash over to John.
Sure.
Now, since
of course. yeah. If you're just, it's kind of a fun idea of a friend.
Yeah.
For a second.
Yeah, for a bit.
But it ain't. In reality,
not in the long term.
Very bad.
Now, since John Holmes was close with both the Wonderland Gang and Eddie Nash, he began working as a middleman between the two dealers. This, of course, was the connection that set the events in motion that would result in the Wonderland Massacre.
But this is what we talked about last week. Do you remember the theme of this entire series is that freebasing cocaine for days and days and years on end will eventually affect your decision-making process.
It will.
Like, this isn't, because you can't, this is not a sober idea.
No, you don't really think things through.
Yeah.
See, when it came to purchasing drugs, Eddie would take most anything valuable in exchange for cocaine or heroin. He would take gold, jewelry, guns, whatever. And as it happened, the Wonderland Gang had just come into possession of 3 extremely valuable and unique antique handguns valued at $75,000. That's $75,000 in 1981 money.
Yeah, but this is not shit you could take to like a normal like fencing operation. This is like this is antique roadshow shit. This is like Smithsonian shit.
This is auction shit. And, and that's what Eddie knew. He knew that these guns were so unique that if he even tried to resell them, if the cops caught wind, they're coming straight for Eddie Nash and his whole fucking operation falls apart.
Yeah.
But at this point, the Wonderland Gang was critically low on heroin.
Ooh.
They therefore pushed John to make a plea to Eddie because Eddie had a soft spot for John Holmes. Nash agreed to hold the guns. He kind of did a favor for John.
No, never. It's never a favor.
I mean, it's too late at this point.
Yeah.
Yes.
He agreed to hold the guns and some gold for 7 days while advancing the Wonderland Gang $1,000 for heroin so they could sell the heroin to make money to buy more heroin.
That is the Nigerian prince scam. That is the same thing. Being like, you don't worry, that's as good as money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, as I'm sure all you listeners are right now, John Holmes was somewhat confused by this nonsensical deal. But from what I can tell, it seems like it's kind of a pawn shop situation, right? Yeah. It's like, Eddie holds onto the guns as collateral, and then once the Wonderland Gang pays back the grand after they sell the heroin, then they get the guns back.
Ed, do you feel like when you were... Because you did light weed stuff and business.
I sold weed in Tallahassee, Florida. Everyone went to jail already. We could talk about it.
Now, did you ever barter?
Barter? No, but like you'd get in situations where like people would give you weed or whatever, and they would want you to, like, they want you to be in debt to them.
Oh, sure.
Because that's when they can really milk it, and they can fucking bring up how much you owe, and they want to give it to a junkie who's gonna do it, because then they could just milk the guy for all of time. And so it's just like it's a good thing. It's good business to do that, you know.
Well, actually, Eddie did not want to really do it because he didn't want to get in a business with heroin addicts. That was his rule. Is that he didn't want to get in a business with heroin addicts because heroin addicts could kill you.
You know what it is?
For a fix.
He's like literally on a fucking roof, like dangling back and forth, playing basketball on the rim of the building, just being like, the thing about heroin addicts is that honestly they're unreliable.
Yeah.